Okay, so the way we're going to work this lesson is we're going to take an existing website and we're going to add validation controls into that website. So let's start Visual Studio. And let's open the website. File, Open, Website. Okay, now if you've installed the project files correctly, then on your desktop you should have a subdirectory called Project Files ASP.NET. We're in Lesson 4, Validating User Input. So let's expand that. And the website you want is called Validation Demo. Okay, so let's close the start page and take a look at default.aspx. And we'll view it in the designer. Okay, so here's our test page. As you can see, it contains various text boxes, and there isn't any validation in this application at the moment. So the user has to enter their name and their age. These are the business rules we're going to insist on. We'll make sure that the user enters a name. We'll make sure the user enters an age, and we'll also insist that the age is between 18 and 65 inclusive. And the enrollment date, we'll also insist on a range of values for the enrollment date. So we'll choose a beginning date and an end date and ensure that the user enters a value in that range. Okay, for the password text box, we'll perform simple validation there. We'll make sure that the user enters any password they want except for the word password, because that isn't a very good password. And then the next box is the confirm text box. And as you can imagine, the validation for this control will be that whatever the user types in here matches whatever they typed in there. Okay. Now, email address, that's a bit trickier because email addresses have a particular pattern. They have dots and @signs and so on. So we're going to have to write some more sophisticated code using regular expressions to test the email address. And then finally, security code, we're going to implement some custom validation there to perform some programmatic evaluation and validation of our own. So I just want to prove that the web application doesn't have any validation at the moment. So let's just run it, Control F5. If I click Submit, clearly it hasn't enforced the user to enter any values in here. And likewise, if I enter an age which is meaningless, such as hello, and I try to click Submit, then it hasn't validated the age. So clearly there is no validation at the moment, so we need to add it in. Now, ASP.NET provides us with a rich set of validation controls. We mentioned these briefly in an earlier lesson, so I'll just remind you here, in the Validation tab, we have a required field validator, which enables you to ensure that a text box contains a value. We have a range validator, which enables you to ensure that the entered value lies in a certain range. And you can use range validator for strings, or for integers, or for floats, or for dates. Regular expression validator, well, that's quite useful for things like email addresses, where you can specify the pattern of expected values. Compare validator, well, we'll use compare validator when we validate the password and the confirm password controls. And we'll use custom validator when we perform our custom validation for the security code. So those are the validator controls. And also at the bottom, you'll notice there's the validation summary. Typically, what you'll do is add a validation summary control to the bottom of your web page to display a summary of all the errors that have occurred during the current postback. So we'll end off the example by adding a validation summary at the bottom of the web page.